Hey, today I would like to analyze a game which is played in a friendly match right now between Daniil Dubov and Alexei Shirov. They're playing a match over 6 games, and it's just a friendly match for both players to gain experience. And it's called the Battle of Generations because Daniil Dubov is a young, talented player from Russia. He's already really strong, he's an ELO above 2600, and Shirov, he's already in his 40s, but still a very strong player with a ELO rating close to 2700. And I saw one game which really caught my attention and I want to show it to you and analyze it. So Dubov was white in this game. He played knight f3, d5, g3, bishop g4. So we see here white is playing rather modestly in the opening. He's just developing his pieces and is not taking control of the center immediately. This gives black the opportunity to do so. Knight d7, castle, knight g6, and white could play d4 now, but not much would be going on then. It's just symmetrical position about equal. So he played d3, and now we see it's kind of a King's Indian setup here with white reverse. So white played the King's Indian setup, and now black is taking control of the center, plays e5, h3, and usually in this position black either takes on f3 or goes back to h5. But Shirov played differently. He played bishop e6, and now c4 is also interesting that white plays c4 even though black played the bishop to e6. Now you can see that this pawn is actually hanging, but Dubov had something in mind. He wanted to sacrifice a pawn and play d4 here. An idea I haven't seen before, but it seems really interesting. Well, Shirov played bishop d6, supporting a pawn on e5. If black takes, then white just takes, knight takes d4, and he threatens to take on e6. The pawn on b7 is hanging. This is absolutely fine here for white. So bishop d6, and now white tries to get to a bishop a different way. Plays knight g5 again, wants to take on e6 and destroy black's pawn structure. So bishop f5, further harassing the bishop, e4, bishop g6, and still f4, and now threatening f5 followed by g4 if the bishop moves to h5. So black has to do something here. Also notice he can't really take on d4 or f4 because e5 would result in a fork and win a piece, so he played h6. Knight f3, and now knight takes e4. Black takes another pawn. Queen e1. Now trying to increase the pressure on the knight. So e takes f4. Another possibility was here to play bishop e7, also preventing white from playing knight h4, which we will see in the game. And now knight takes e5, knight takes e5, d takes e5, knight is hanging, so queen d3, and this position is very complex, but it seems that white is also doing alright here. Okay, but Shirov is always pursuing complicated positions because he is really an expert in playing dynamic positions where the material is unbalanced, and we'll see in the game is very unbalanced. So now knight h4, and white will actually win a piece here because knight is hanging and this bishop is also hanging on g6. So castle, knight takes g6, and if black takes back now, then white can just take on e4. And even though black has taken a lot of pawns, it wouldn't be enough. So he played knight g3, knight takes g3. Now knight takes f8, and now knight takes f8. If black takes on f1, just knight takes d7, and here white is just 2 pieces up, and it's too much. It's just too much. White is winning here. So knight takes f8 and rook f2, and now we take a look at position and we see that actually black is a rook down, but for 4 pawns. He still has all his 8 pawns, and white It's already given away 4 pawns. So it is really unbalanced. And black is also a little bit ahead in the development. So position is actually about equal. Really interesting. Here Shirov played knight e6, supporting a pawn on f4 and also threatening a pawn on d4. Knight c3. But now Shirov played not the best move, played queen h4. He should have played c6. So after knight e4 he could retreat his bishop to c7, and he would keep the strong bishop. And his position, maybe white has a little edge, but it's super complicated, and I didn't dive into the variations too much. After queen h4 though, it seems that white is better. Knight e4. Now maybe the next inaccuracy by black took on d4. Still was better to take on e4 followed by c5. And black would lose the pawn on b7, but he would be able to take on d4, because obviously white cannot take on c5 because bishop takes c5. And if he plays d5, then knight d4 and the queen would be a little bit out of play. So this position is still better for white, but still very unclear. Okay, knight takes d4. Now knight takes d6, c takes d6. White exchanged the piece which is protecting a pawn on f4. So actually you could have taken on f4 and would have obtained a really good position, and I don't know exactly why he didn't do it. Play bishop d2. After bishop takes f4, well, only way for black to play on actually is to play knight d2 check. Plays a little combination here. Maybe this is what white was afraid of, because he is only a piece up now, but for 4 pawns still. But what matters here is that white pieces are really active. He plays rook f1, queen e4 check, rook f2, and you can see black pawns are not really dangerous, and this pawn is hanging on b7 and white is threatening to play queen e7. So it is actually black who has to defend here very well, and probably best would be to play c3 and here rook f8, but black will have a hard time defending this position. Only white could possibly win. White played bishop d2. The idea here, so black played f3, strong move by Shirov. The idea was if black places forward, then rook takes f4. And if now, well, black takes on e1, then just take the queen on h4, and if black takes, then this position is absolutely superior here for white, with both bishops completely dominating the board. White is doing very well. But f3 is strong move. Bishop takes f3, and now knight c2. Difference is, well, obviously white cannot play rook f4, but he had something different in mind. He wanted to play bishop g5. Strong move here. So the idea is, well, the queen is hanging, and if black just takes, well, he didn't do that. If he just takes, then rook takes c2, and black doesn't have any sufficient check here with the knight and cannot win any material back, and he's just still rook down, and white is better. So he played knight e2. Wonderful move, wonderful. Check. So what's the idea? The idea is that after queen takes e2, now black takes with check and can take the rook in the next move. So play bishop g2. If rook g2, then black has another check on c5 and can take the rook in the next move. So bishop g2, and now knight takes a1. And white is still doing fine here. Even though the material is balanced now, black has regained the whole rook, the knight is trapped on a1. But white was a little bit hurrying too much here to win the knight on a1, and it was not necessary. He he could have just taken on c4 and also threatening to play queen takes f7. And probably best for black would be here to play d5, and this endgame is about equal. Rook f8, and white cannot win the knight, but black has to give up more pawns in order to somehow get out of a1. So bishop takes b7, rook d8, and it seems the position is approximately equal. After queen e1, white will win the piece, but black's pawns are suddenly becoming very dangerous. Queen takes a1, d4, and now white made another mistake. He played queen f1. Best chance was to play queen d1. After d3, then queen f3. And here, still not completely clear. So rook d8, queen takes f7 check, king h8, and it seems that black is better, but white has still a lot of chance to fight on. Queen f1 doesn't work out that well. d3 again, rook takes f7, now just rook d8, and this pawn is really annoying white. So he played rook f5 here to maybe possibly play piece to d5, but just queen e3 check, king h2, and queen d4. Central square for a queen, perfect. And now threatening d2, also taking on b2. What did bishop f3? Yeah, for example, queen f4, and let's just take, and the rook endgame would be completely winning here because black is gaining a second pawn, and with 2 pawns up, it should be easily winning here for black. Okay, bishop f3, which allows black to take another pawn with check, king h1, and now just queen d4 back, and now even the other pawn is becoming dangerous. So he played queen g2, d2, and it's just too much now, too many pawns black. Bishop d1, rook u8 now, obviously trying to play the rook to e1, rook f1, still rook e1, paralyzing all the white pieces. Queen f, sorry, not queen g3, would be not too good, but queen f3, trying to somehow maybe play a perpetual check here, but black immediately destroys any hopes of playing queen e4, and now queens are exchanged, and it seems like white is still having some hope here. If you know, maybe can build up a fortress, but now black destroys every hope by taking on d1, what I think is a beautiful finish here. And at this point, white resigned and Shirov won the game. Ideas, well, white takes, then c3, and king e2, c2, no, rook takes d2, then c1 queen, and if king takes d2, then just take the rook, and we see a pawn in game, 2 pawns up for black, which is of course completely winning. So Dubov resigned at this point. Yeah, and really exciting game. Just amazing how Shirov manages to play these dynamic positions and create chances and sees and the tactic possibilities. And I thought it was really exciting because usually you don't see a lot of games where one side has 4 pawns for rook. So I hope you enjoyed the game as well, and I see you next time.